He said, here, take it. Couldn't die.
I don't know. I totally remember mine. Did you vote? You didn't vote, right? I don't know. You voted, right?
Voted what?
You're supposed to vote AOF.
What? I'm not a member of AOF.
You're not?
No.
Not a member of AOF.
All right, everyone, take a seat. We're going to start. Ladies and gentlemen, why don't you go ahead and claim a seat, get ready to start. Where are you hiding? I don't think there's women.
Well, if I blocked your view, I'm in my way. Here we go.
I would do the other way.
Oh, is that it? Oh, I'm so glad to hear you've improved. Yeah, we're at the house.
Nancy, that's yours, right? Pretend wrist. There you go. Do you want it somewhere else? Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that's fine. Wait, sit up. Tom, you're on board. Tom, you're on board. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sunday Assembly. I know you're all seated, but I'm going to ask you guys to stand up and let's get ready for a little jambalaya. You ready to do this? Yeah. All right, let's do it. There you go. A little higher.
Okay, hi everybody. We chose this song because I already know it. And also it's cheerful, celebratory song about having a good time down on the bayou. In our case, it's having a good time down in Sacramento. And our say hello to Clyde, my digital drummer, resides in my iPad over here. He's going to start things out for us. Goodbye, Joe, we got to go, Ohio. We got to go over the road down Ohio. My mom, she is on the Ohio. The sun's gonna have
big fun on the bayou. Well, jambalaya and a crawfish pie till they're gumbo. For tonight I'm gonna see my stereo. A big guitar, fill guitar, and radio. Son of a gun, gonna have it fun on the bayou. All right. Down below, about to know the place is buzzing. Them folks come to get on by the dozen. Chicken style, go hog wild, and you go. Son of a gun, gonna have it fun on the bayou. Well, jambalaya and crawfish pie till they're gumbo. For tonight I'm gonna see my stereo. A big guitar, fill guitar, and stereo. Son of a gun, gonna have it fun on the bayou. Well, jambalaya and crawfish pie till they're gumbo. For tonight I'm gonna see my stereo. A big guitar, fill guitar, and radio. Son of a gun, gonna have big fun on the bayou. Son of a gun, gonna have big fun on the bayou.
Not bad, Michael, not bad. And Clyde. You're just a little too tall. You need to work on that for the microphone stand. Well, everybody, welcome to Sunday Assembly. My name is not John Donovan. He couldn't be here today, but I'm happy to be your MC in his place. Couple typical things here, some emergency exits. They are that way and that way, probably the way you came in. Just grab your kid, head on out. If you have cell phones, go ahead and put them on silent or mute. And welcome to Sunday Assembly. We're a secular congregation here that celebrates life. Our motto is right behind you in case you guys forget it. We are here to live better, help often, and to wonder more. And I'm really thrilled with our lineup that we have today that I think is going to help us do a lot of those things. And thanks to our live music, we can celebrate life a little bit while we're here doing those things. Sunday Assembly is we're radically inclusive here. We respect all people, no matter what your background. And how many of you are here, maybe even for the first time today? Fantastic. Round of applause for our new people. Give your fingers in so high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a half. All right, great. And a lot of people helped make this thing happen. We've got Becky all the way in the back doing childcare. Everybody say, hey, Becky! Hey, Becky! All right. And helping us set up this morning, we had Nancy. Where'd she go? That's how helpful she is. She's probably doing something helpful right now. Nancy is our volunteer coordinator. She and Alan and our board was here, and Marie was here, all setting things up, putting out chairs. Round of applause for all of the people who helped. And we've got Thomas helping us out on videography. And I also want to thank the Reason Center, this very building, that allows us to have such a great event every month and few in between. And later on coming up, we've got some upcoming events that are happening here. Not Sunday Assembly events, but still great events nonetheless. So let's talk a little bit about today. Janet selected our theme, Land of the Free. Kind of fitting. We did just have a election, not here in California, but many other states held their elections was it last Tuesday. And so we've brought together somebody from the ACLU to help us learn a little bit about how they're helping everyone get their civil liberties going. And then we've got Nancy who's going to talk to us a little bit about how she's helping, how she and her family are living better through the use of recycling and just making the planet work and that kind of stuff, right? And so that's going to be really fun. We've also got upcoming announcements. Our potluck. How many of you guys are going to stick around for the potluck / social hour after that? Yeah, a couple of you guys. Good. You're
I
always
brought
welcome.
turkey.
Janet brought turkey. Great.
I'm not taking it home.
And even if you didn't bring anything, of course, you're still more than welcome to hang out with us. And so let's start off. I'm going to bring Janet up here to introduce one of our speakers. So everybody, this is Janet on our board. Let's give her a little round of applause.
The reason I wanted to come up to introduce our speakers because one of the things that's been an issue with Sunday assemblies everywhere is that they want to do some of the things that standard churches do, which is to help often in their communities. And that's a capacity building thing where you can have enough people under one roof who agree to do something together. And till we get there, I think that it's great to bring in people from our community who are doing a lot of that help often, which helps us all live better and wonder more and all of that. And for all of you, I think it's very important. Many of us are very involved in different organizations, but I would invite you as a card-carrying member of the ACLU, that used to be something where people were put down for it, and so I don't have to waive it, but I'm very proud to be, and because I'm involved in things, we all have our different levels how we get involved. For me, I'm very involved in one thing, so I just give money to a lot of organizations, and ACLU is one of them, and when I started talking to our speaker, Sarita, come on up, I was so enthused by the things she was telling me that Sacramento was doing that I said, please tell us a little of the history and the story of Sacramento, as well as whatever topic we want to speak about today in terms of some of the actual work they're doing. The progress and the story is wonderful. So please listen with an open ear, and remember, you too can be a card-carrying member of the ACLU.
So I'm actually not going to recruit anyone to join the ACLU. I'm going to leave that up to you guys. Hopefully you'll be inspired after I talk. But thank you, Janet. And so I kind of just wanted to talk about the power of a nudge. So, just people who kind of push you a little when you least expect it, and then it turns into something unbelievable or powerful. So I'm a board member with the Sacramento ACLU, and I actually got to the board through the power of a nudge. And it was actually by my former student who is currently serving with me on the ACLU of SAC board. And what happened was, it was in 2014, I had him, it was fall of 2014. I teach political science at Sacramento City College. And he received an internship with the ACLU, and he just could not stop talking about it. And I was a card-carrying member. I had gone to a few ACLU events, and I was super inspired by him because he was like, I was just about to drop out of Sac City College. I needed something to push me, and I think this is what's going to push me and keep me in school, and maybe I'll major in poli-sci. And of course, that was music to my ears. So he did the internship. He kept in contact with me. Every week he would kind of give me an update on how he was doing. And then it was the end of the semester, it was about November, they were opening up applications to serve on the board. And of course, I had no idea what that meant. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, to serve on a chapter board. And so he gave me that nudge that I needed. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to apply. You love the ACLU. You love hearing what I'm doing. Why don't you apply too? And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about it. And I said, yeah, let me do this. So I applied to serve on the board with a lot of reservations. So at that time, I just had my son in August of 2014. And so I was nursing him. I was obviously going, to work and then back home. And I was like, I don't think this is going to work out. And when I picked up the phone and I called the chair at that time of the ACLU of SAC board, I said, I really want to apply. I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'll have the time, right? And I was making all these excuses. He stopped me right then and there, and he goes, Sarita, we will do whatever it takes. We want you to serve. You can call, we can do phone conferences with you. You don't have to attend every meeting. You just do what you can do. And he sort of nudged me too and said hey, just do it. Don't think too much about it. So I did it. I started serving on the board January of 2015. And that first year, kind of like when you first start out doing something, you kind of want to test the waters and kind of do more observing than kind of stepping back and observing. And so the first year I kind of just went, okay, let me just take all of this in, and I'll explain to you kind of what we do currently. At that time, we were really focusing on criminal justice reform. That was like the one issue. But I kind of felt like that was the only issue that we were really focused on. We were so zeroed in on criminal justice reform. And so then I met with the chair, and he said, hey, what do you think so far? And I said, God, I feel like it's a lot of criminal justice reform. It's good work. I think we're doing a great job. We could do so much more. And so I said, we need to get out there in the community. I mean, we are representing the Sacramento area, but yet we're really not doing a whole lot in the community. We're waiting for people to come to us rather than going out to the community. And I said, that should be our goal for the next year. And so we got together, the board got together at the end of 2015, and we basically said, and this is currently what we have structured into our board. We have like 4 or 5 different committees. So we have one committee that focuses on Know Your Rights. So has anyone attended like a Know Your Rights presentation, maybe not by the ACLU, but by another organization on like Know Your Rights regarding immigration, with the police demonstrating, yes? So we sort of go out, we can come here and give a Know Your Rights presentation if that would interest you. We do a lot at various colleges, local colleges, house parties. So if you want to do, I don't know, a New Year's Eve party and then kind of have a Know Your Rights presentation, we could do that. The smaller the better. This is actually a perfect size. So we have a Know Your Rights committee. We go out and we give really brief 40 to 45 minute Know Your Rights presentations. We try to have dialogue and answer questions. All of us are not practicing attorneys except for one. And so we don't give legal advice, but we give legal information. And I think that's one of the big misconceptions that a lot of people have about the ACLU is that we just litigate. How many of you thought that? Like when you heard ACLU, you're like, oh gosh, here she comes. So, so litigation obviously is a big part of it, but that really happens at the national level. So we have the national ACLU, then we have the state affiliates, and then we have us, the chapters, that are underneath the umbrella of the California affiliate. And the chapters, what we do, we're pretty much the eyes and ears for the ACLU and for you guys. So when we see potential civil liberties violations happening in the community, it could be over a criminal justice issue, people interacting with police and believing their rights are violated. It could be someone at a high school who believes that maybe their right to privacy was violated because of their sexual orientation. So there's a wide variety of civil liberties issues that we tackle. And so Know Your Rights, so going back to what I said, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. So Know Your Rights committee, we have a Know Your Rights committee, and that's pretty much the committee that I focus on. We also have lobbying. So lobbying actually is not like, okay, what do you guys think when I say lobby? What's the first like word that comes to mind when you hear it? You're gonna lobby government. Money, right? Like a good talker, right? Someone who has access, right? Like they're like prestige or like a, you know, some kind of access to an elected official. So with lobbying, we actually just bring people together and we have them just tell their story to an elected official. And we really focus on the local level because we believe that at the local level, in terms of local government, that's really where change happens and that's where you get the most contact with government. And so we tell people whether if they're interested in criminal justice issue like bail reform, which Jose is going to come back. Jose serves on the board with me. He's coming back here to talk about bail reform. Or if it's a reproductive justice issue, an environmental justice issue, an education equity issue, we tell them when you go and you visit your elected official or their staff member, tell your story. I mean, give them the visual picture, give them the story to complement the legislation that they should either vote against or vote in support of, right? It's really as simple as that. So we bring people together, give them those tools, and then we go with them, and we sort of like, we advocate with them. And there have been people who have done it just once and have said, wow, like it really changed my perception about government. I was very negative about government. I realized that government actually does listen to you. Maybe they don't follow through, but they do give you, they do open their doors, they do provide you the opportunity to say what you need to say. So lobbying is another one. There's also another committee on transgender rights. So we actually have a transgender toolkit for K through 12. And what we do is we research various school districts and ensure that they're not violating students' rights based upon sexual orientation. And so we go to schools and we give Know Your Rights presentations, we have forums, etc. And then there's another committee on civic engagement. And so we try to network, like we can network with you guys. You know, we network with local organizations, bring people together. We also don't want to double up. You know, if there's a community or if there's an organization that's doing really good work with regard to immigration, like the Sacramento Immigration Coalition does a lot of work. And they really got active after Trump got into office. And so we don't want to step on their toes or double up. And so we try to make sure that we develop those strong relationships and ties and really produce the most effective change that we want to see. So those are the committees. If you serve on the board, you pretty much serve on a committee, like 1 or 2 committees. So even though I'm a board member, yeah, we have our monthly meetings, but it's pretty much we're doing the work in small groups. So that's kind of what the board's about. And so you guys, you can ask me questions later if you have any about serving on the board. So then after 2015, we finished 2015, thank you, we decided to, we had these committees set up and we decided to really get involved in the community. And so we did an unprecedented number of Know Your Rights presentations. And remember, going into 2016, we're going into the election, right? So we had a lot of people who were interested in politics and government. Criminal justice reform was still a huge issue. Immigration was also a big issue. Criminal justice reform was probably up there. And so what actually led to us winning the chapter, we actually won the ACLU chapter award for Northern California, was because of 2 things. So number 1, it was because we had a presence in the community in terms of educating folks on their rights and providing a so-called safe place to get people together to talk about various issues, how they may have felt that their civil liberties were violated with police. We had undocumented immigrants sharing their story in terms of how they felt they were treated by law enforcement. So having that presence in the community made a huge difference. We never said no to anyone. We reached out to organizations, and then they knew other organizations, and so they would refer us to other organizations. So that was a big part of it. The second part was we partnered with Black Lives Matter of Sacramento, and I'm sure most of you are very familiar with that movement. So the founder of the Sacramento chapter of Black Lives Matter is Tanya Faison. And Tanya Faison actually is currently our board member. She's not listed on our website, but she has been our board member since the beginning of 2017. But in 2016, we partnered with her and other folks who had started the Black Lives Matter movement in Sacramento, and we trained them on Know Your Rights, particularly when protesting. And then we attended a lot of their events in solidarity with them. And that's what the ACLU wants to see. They want to see that kind of activism. And so we ended up winning the award at the end of 2016 in December. And then 2017 rolled around, and now and actually we had our first major event January of 2017 after President Trump was inaugurated, and we could not believe it. We had our event, there was I would say about 120 people who came to our chapter event in January. And we literally were just we could not say, we were like, okay, let's roll up our sleeves, let's do something. And everyone was sort of just sitting there, and the predominant response was, what can I do? We need to do something. Give us something to do. And so we were so energized by the amount of people who came to the meeting. And subsequently, we had monthly meetings thereafter, and they just sort of they kept coming. And so as of 2017, we've really set a more structured board that has we have all the goals outlined, we have steps taken to get to to reach these goals regarding our various committees. And there's never a dull moment. I mean, things change obviously with the Trump administration coming into office. There's a lot of issues that people care about, particularly immigration. And so we're trying to provide that sense of calm and reason, giving people the tools that they need to sort of say like, don't panic, don't be fearful. We can come and like provide you with the information that you need. And so that's sort of been our goal for 2017. Yeah, so I don't know if my time is up. Is that a cue that I need to?
I have no idea what
Okay.
that was.
Okay.
And you were gonna just say.
Yeah, so I just-
Voter information.
Yes, and so, yeah, and so one of the big goals for the ACLU of Northern California is to get people, so we're in Sacramento County, has anyone heard of the California Voters' Choice Act? Yeah, so the California Voters' Choice Act was passed in 2016, and it's set to take effect January of 2018. And so what that law basically says is that we're trying to make voting more accessible and convenient for folks. So Sacramento County is the largest county that has opted in to implementing California Voters' Choice Act. And so what's going to happen is that you're not going to see polling places anymore. Polling places are actually going to be replaced by what are called voting centers. And there's going to be 78 voting centers across Sacramento County. And actually, it's not too late to hold a community forum. You could even hold one here, or at, if it's at your place of, if you're involved in an organization, you can hold a community forum. They are holding forums and getting suggestions from the community on where best to place these voting centers. So for example, I mentioned I teach at Sac City College. We're holding a forum early December, and we're going to bring students together and advocate that we should have a voting center at Sacramento City College, because the voting centers are pretty much a one-stop shop. So the big thing about the voting center is their same-day registration, meaning that when you register or when you vote, let's say because the next election is the primary, right, in June in California, you can register the same day that you vote. Versus, the status quo today is what? You have to register how many days before an election? 15 days, right, before an election. And particularly for younger people between 18 and 29 have the lowest voter turnout rate, well below the national voting average. And so we're trying to, press the case that we need to have one at Sac City College. So the other thing too is that the voting centers will be open as early as 11 days before each election. So you'll have the opportunity to vote early. You'll also have the opportunity to drop off your ballot at any voting center or drop box. There's also going to be drop boxes set up in communities where you can drop off your ballot. And that's going to be very convenient for folks, especially if you're working full-time, you have kids, obviously, you're pressed for time. So those are just some major components of the law. I have a handout that's on the green table, and then there's also a website that you can go to. But I highly recommend that you educate yourself about the law and also spread the word, particularly for young people who have the lowest voter turnout rate. Please spread the word. Okay, thank you.
How big does a place need to be one of these voting centers? Say about that wide and that long?
Yes.
Alan, what are you? Right? All right. My apologies for that sound effect. That was a reminder that I need to check into my flight that's coming in tomorrow. Mute your cell phones and your laptops. Just keep that. All right. Well, I'm going to call Janet back up so she can introduce our next speaker. And there you go, Janet.
Well, and again, I'm prefacing these not so much to preface the speaker specifically, but why we choose the people we're choosing, or this thing that makes me very happy, is that with Sunday Assembly, the doing our best spot was supposed to be, as best as you can, people from amongst your congregation who tell you about a challenge in their life. And sometimes people, I don't want you to think it means that you come and tell us about some journey with an injury, but we've had that, and it was probably the funniest one we had, Matt. If you remember Matt's, it's on YouTube, I hope, because it's hilarious about something that wasn't so hilarious. But anyway, Nancy came forward and suggested that she had some things she wanted to talk about, and I thought, this is exactly wonderful. You're on a journey to do something positive, that's live better, help often, wonder more. And I'm not going to say anything more about it. I'm just really happy someone stepped up. And for the rest of you, you all have stories. Think about what yours could be. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Nancy, and I'm going to talk today about two things that I think of often. So that is my kids. These are Nevi and Ileana, 3 and 1 year olds, and also global warming. That is something that I think about every day. And I actually have ideas about why we don't all talk about that more every day and why we don't hear about it more every day. Kind of sinister reasons why, but I think that we should talk about it more often because it affects all of us. So jumping right in, here's some images. This one is by NASA. So 1880 to 2015. This is how temperature has risen. And that is concurrent with the rise in carbon in our atmosphere. You hear a lot about things being unprecedented. Recently we've had a hurricane, Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico, followed immediately by a fire in Sonoma, and we hear about unprecedented damage, cost, death toll. You know, how could it not be unprecedented? That's the kind of climate instability that goes along with this graph, and it is going up. So I really worry about what is that going to look like when my kids are my age, and what are the real life implications for us, because we cannot evolve quickly enough to adapt to this quick rise in temperature and in carbon in our atmosphere. So the second image there, I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But the blue footprint, it's quite large. That is the average American carbon footprint annually, 20 metric tons. To put that into perspective, the green footprint, that's the average global citizen. And that is with all the Americans averaged in. So that's with 300 million plus Americans doing the 20 metric tons. The global average person that you'd pick off of any old continent would be 4 metric tons. 1/5 of what we do. So, you know, when my husband and I were planning our family, something on my mind was, how much is I'm responsible for probably the blue footprint, something around there, and I'm gonna put more kids here that are doing that also. Like, I think it's a human right to have kids. I don't think it's a human right to have this much carbon. And even though my kids are my dream is costing the environment more than all these other people that are just polluting less and possibly feeling the effects more immediately than I am. So I do keep that in mind. Second thing that's changed since I've become a parent is that now, you know, there's these little humans on Earth that through my decisions and through my will, and to me, part of being a parent is protecting them and ensuring that they have a future. That's something probably all parents can agree on. And it's really inextricable, like me trying to ensure a sustainable earth for them to live on, and other social justice issues as well. Even though some of what I do is independent from my kids, it's with them in mind, and with their whole generation and future generations in mind as well. So how do we go about how do we go about like realizing our values? You know, we have these values, we identify them. What do we do to live with integrity and actually live them out? As far as I can see, there's two domains. One is our personal decisions, so actually living with these values and minds, and the second one, which is actually bigger, I mean by definition bigger, is activism and advocacy, because that's influencing systems. So like what I do myself is one thing, but systems are going to determine how masses of people behave, and you know, it's just exponentially bigger. My advocacy and activism, like maybe some other people, was like this for the past 10 years and like this for the past 1 year. And I could talk about that at a different time. It's necessarily political, so I thought maybe I'll save that for after I'm a member here for a longer time and kind of suss things out. Anyway, I really recommend this video. There's a short video, you can watch it online for free. The Story of Stuff, just Google that. Basically, their thesis is that we have a linear system of consumption and we are in a consumer culture. And we have a linear system, which would be okay if we had infinite resources, but we don't. We have one Earth, and we have actually depleted 1/3 of the Earth's resources in 20 years. So clearly that's not gonna last forever. Basically, this is extraction, production, distribution, consumption, and disposal. And what you're doing is taking this one earth, taking, so it's not a cycle. You know, nature is actually works in cycles, but this is not, this is like opposite of nature. What's not in the static picture is that along the way, depending on what product you're talking about, I mean, every product has people involved in all of these steps. Depending on the product, those people might be more or less exploited, animals might be more or less exploited, and also carbon necessarily is emitted in every part of this cycle. Those little guys, if you're wondering, the little one is the government, kind of watching this whole thing, like, okay, and the big one is the corporation, which is kind of overseeing the government because it is bigger and has more money, corporations, than governments. So what do we do about combating this linear system that is not compatible with our survival? 3 things: reduce, reuse, recycle. That's kind of my conclusion. And they're not all equal. So you hear them together, but actually recycling is very problematic. When you have a recycling bin, it's not like 100% of that. You know, it doesn't, all your bottles don't make new bottles. There's a lot of downcycling into stuff that can no longer be recycled. There's a lot of refuse that just gets put into the landfill or incinerated. It requires fuel and it produces carbon. It's an industrial process. So the gold standard is reducing. That's why it's at the top of the pyramid. And I put a slide in here just to show you. Reducing is hard. You know, there's messages that we get, like probably 1 million a day, telling you consume, consume, consume. And we incorporate this into our own identity. And maybe our impression that other people get of us is largely based on our earning power and our buying power, and how do we display that? You know, how do we show affection for people? It's all very tied up with consumption, which is too bad. This image is actually a representation of how I felt when I was expecting my first daughter, and I went into Bye Bye Baby for the first time, which is a huge place, like 10 times, and you know, and just floor to ceiling, frozen rows of all these items, and I thought, it's bad enough trying to not overconsume for myself, but when you're thinking about your little baby infant, that what if I don't get the one thing that I actually need, and the accessories of accessories of accessories, so I recognize that's hard. Something I've done, you know, we all have our talents. I've become like a professional level secondhand shopper. So my kids, I can say, first of all, they are not deprived and they have really good stuff, but pretty much everything I've gotten secondhand. You know, the car seat and the crib, we got new, and the crib mattress was kind of a safety issue, but all of their high chairs, strollers, swings, all that stuff when they were small, all but a handful of their clothes. I actually am a pediatric speech therapist, so I go to kids who medically qualify for speech therapy, and I can't tell you how many times I bring some educational toy I found at a garage sale for 10 cents, probably in someone's garage since 1992, and these kids who won't sit still for 2 minutes to actually participate in social and play and communicative skills will sit with me and will engage. And the parent is in the corner Googling the generic description of this toy, and I'm like, don't, because you could be, you know, I can't go into somebody's house and unpack all their measuring cups and stack them, or bang on their Tupperware, or get that big cardboard box out of their recycle. But that can work as well as any toy. The magic is not in the toy or in the item, it's in the interaction, and it's in us, you know, and there's no catalog, registry, commercial billboard that's gonna tell you this, but I wanna tell people that. This, by the way, is not actually reducing, because I haven't quite reached that gold standard, but what it is catching the cycle right here in consumption. So I really want to make it the norm. Oh, I also do this for myself. I don't just bestow secondhand stuff upon my kids and my clients. I do it myself, and I used to be coy about it because I didn't want people to think I was cheap. But now I'll say, thanks, I got it for $1 at whatever consignment store, Goodwill, garage sales are my favorite. I want to make it the norm. And then, you know, if we redistribute everything that we already have that we're not using to people who will use it, we can kind of like reduce demand and keep a little of that stuff in the earth. Something else we've done, cloth diapers. I was late to this game. I've just done this with my younger daughter who's 1 year old, and I did a little calculation there. We save over 300,000 diaper years annually by using cloth diapers. That is based on a disposable diaper lasting 450 years in a landfill. And during that time, when you throw something out, it doesn't go away. It actually, the nature of landfills is that they are producing greenhouse gases all the time. When you press even organic matter, smush that together with other materials, is producing methane. And so those things are warming the earth as they rot, basically. So, you know, and actually this number would be bigger. Her daycare doesn't do cloth diapers. If they did, we could multiply that number by 8, and we would save a couple million diaper years annually if we were on a full-time cloth diaper schedule. So something else that I really think about, if there's something that I use for less than a day and then throw it out, I probably don't really need it. And I can probably find a reusable alternative. So if I go out to eat, I ask for no straws, for example. At work, I have a little drawer with spoon, fork, bowl, mug. I don't need the plastic ones. Of course, there's cloth shopping bags in the trunk. It's really not hard. I can just pick it up if I'm doing a spontaneous shopping trip. I bring a thermos to a cafe. I do love my coffee, but you know what? They usually give me a discount for using my own thermos. It's not a big deal. I have Tupperware in my purse if we ever need a doggy bag. Styrofoam, by the way, is even worse than plastic. It actually never literally biodegrades. Plastic is problematic too. I don't drink water, bottled water, which is problematic because of the plastic, but also because of how it's sourced and the fuel that it's needed to move it around. Water's really heavy. I think that whenever we can eliminate these disposable things that we use for 5 minutes and throw out, it's kind of a painless change that we can make pretty easily. Something else in my house, this is my daughter going to town on corn on the cob with blueberries on her face. We try not to eat animal products. There's a cruelty element to it, the way that factory farming works, but also the environmental impact of factory farming. We haven't cut out poultry or dairy. I just haven't gotten there yet. But red meat I no longer get, and I used to get it for my husband or for a company, and now I thought, you know what, as long as I'm the designated shopper, I have that privilege of doing all the grocery shopping, I'm gonna exercise my consumer choice. My kids don't mind. They would prefer a veggie burger over a burger any day without me even telling them to do that. They just like it. Something else that we do, this is my big daughter, composting with a little apple core there. Super easy. I'm really type B about it. I got this compost bin for free from the county, and just all of our plant matter, coffee grounds, banana peels, whatever, throw in there. See, if it was in the landfill, it would be producing methane, but by itself there, it doesn't smell, it doesn't attract pests, it goes back into the earth. It's a little cycle because it's nature. My husband said, what's going to happen when it overflows? But it never overflows because by the time something's on top, the stuff on bottom is back in the earth. It's like so beautiful, it's so easy, I really recommend it. We're first-time homeowners, and our first summer in our house was the drought in 2016. So I'm from the Midwest, and we keep our grass green by stuff coming out of the sky that's cold and wet, whether we want it or not. So for me to be here and like, whoa, my neighbors are using hundreds of gallons of water. When we're in a drought and people are worried about drinking water, I just couldn't do it. My husband was embarrassed to come home. One time a dog went doo-doo in our driveway, and he swore that it was because the neighbors were getting revenge on us because we had an eyesore and all this stuff. So I thought, whoa, okay, whatever, we need to make a compromise here. And we did landscaping. I think it looks pretty cool, actually. Just a few drought-resistant plants, planted a few trees, and now we use minimal water. Also, the county and the state actually refunded us with minimal paperwork, refunded us to pay for half of our investment. Oh yeah, I should say, when I was researching this, or when I was putting together these slides, I came across this story about Nestle, which is actually siphoning millions of gallons of water from San Bernardino, small national park there. And they were doing that even in the height of the drought, and that is because they have a private bottled water industry, basically endangering habitat there, endangering these ancient species, so that they could earn billions of dollars off of this water that they're taking from a national park, which is actually ours. Like it's a small little oasis in Southern California that is designated as a national park. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. That's like a systems-wide thing, and it makes my actions look really small, and it ticks me off. I want that kind of stuff to be stopped. Something else that we've done recently is solar. So this was also an investment, but in 10 years we'll have a return on our investment because we don't pay electric bills anymore. And after 10 years, what's actually happening from a few panels on our roof, we're generating enough power for ourselves, and some of it is going to our neighbors. So after after 10 years, SMUD is actually going to give us like a portion, like a small percent of what they're charging our neighbors for our surplus, and we'll actually be making money. I'm wondering, you know, my whole neighborhood where I live in has gone up 2009 till today. It's still developing, for better or worse. But why wasn't solar the default? By 2009, it was easy, it was accessible, it was affordable. That's a good question that we should ask ourselves. Why don't new buildings, why isn't this just the default now? You know, this is actually a renewable thing. Like, that's not linear. We get sun every day for free, especially in this part of the world, the country. I asked myself, why isn't Puerto Rico? Why isn't the federal government, you know, they still have 60% of people on that island without power. They have really antiquated, dirty energy systems there. They could be replacing that all with solar, with renewable. I'm not counting on the federal government through FEMA as it is, or the EPA as it is. But what's happening is that Tesla is coming in. I mean, private industries are coming in and making deals with, for example, with the governor of Puerto Rico. If he's not motivated by the environmental benefit, there's also a social benefit to the people there who will eventually save money. And there's an economic benefit. It's cheaper, it's free, you get it for free, you don't have to process anything once they're installed. So that brings me to my last point. And this is a return to that slide that I had visited originally. I didn't really talk about the red footprint in there. Where the blue footprint is the average American is 20 metric tons, the red footprint is 8.5 tons. And that's what they call, a research group at MIT developed this, by the way, in 2008. They call it the homeless average, the average American homeless footprint. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be homeless to do that. But basically that was like the floor for how the smallest amount that we as American residents could possibly generate if we don't have a house, don't drive a car, even a communal kind of environment. It could also be like an itinerant monk. It could be somebody living on like a commune and doing sustenance farming. So if you're asking yourself, how is the minimum that an American can make still more than twice of what the average person pollutes? That's a really good question. And that's because they took into consideration government services. So that's basically socialized goods that we pay into and that we presumably benefit from. If you're thinking of schools and libraries, that's part of it. A big part of it is the military. If you pay taxes, that's half of your tax money. And that is a big, I mean, there's a lot of carbon footprint associated with all of the things the military does. Highways, mostly designed for single occupancy vehicles, building them, maintaining them, expanding them, streets, police forces, firefighter, paramedic, prisons, things like that. Some people actually want to literally build a wall on thousands of miles of the border. That would bump us up a notch. You know, that has an environmental cost aside from making certain species go extinct, aside from other problems. But that is actually an example of a socialized good done in our name. And this is why I cannot finish talking about this without, you know, I don't want to make it sound like all these little things I'm doing in my life that if all of us and all of our friends also did them, we would still have that red footprint to answer for. And that's where the activism and advocacy comes in. So I'm glad that ACLU made an appearance here today because it's that kind of movement. We're going to have to change one way or another. We can push our government and our systems to do it proactively, or we can wait for some other, you know, time where we don't have a choice and where a lot of damage is already done. I don't know what's going to happen, but you know, we're doing our best to be proactive. I'm going to leave it there because that's my non-political version of this talk. So this is my baby at the People's March for Climate Justice. Well, thank you guys for letting me talk. Also, I know I always
That was absolutely fantastic, inspirational. I loved it. Thank you so much for doing that. Yeah, when we first started Sunday Assembly, what now, 3 years ago, right? We decided to make a little impact in our footprint. We decided we're not going to use paper cups or anything else. We got everybody to bring on the first day. We had everyone bring a mug with them, and most of those mugs are still there in one piece. And so, personally, I do a lot of events where I need to like bring water and stuff like that, highway cleanup and things. And just like 2 months ago, I'm like, I'm done with bottled water. I'm done with this. And so I went to Amazon and I bought these. I bought like 10 of these and just keep them filled up in my fridge and hand them out and collect them back when we're done with the event. And it's actually cheaper and it's better for the environment. So thank you and your family for everything that you're doing. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm going to move on to our moment of reflection. We've heard some great things from ACLU and from Nancy as well about the environment and what we can do. And so I want just to give us a little 45 to 60 seconds to think about what we might be able to do to, improve things and live better, help often, and wonder more. Thank you everyone for that. So then we move on to our open floor. If anyone has any announcements, I'm going to start off with the typical housekeeping things, but be thinking about what you might want to share with everybody. If you have something to be congratulated or something you can help with, or maybe just anything that you want to speak that's on your mind. And I'm going to talk about Janet again, who's here representing the board, and talk about board nominations. And I have a big question mark on there because I was going to ask you, and this is my fault, to remind us who our nominating committee is. Do you happen to have those names on hand? Yeah, do you want to talk about what's going on here in this calendar and what we need?
Yeah, 30 seconds. Okay.
30 seconds.
The
Go.
members are John Donovan, current trustee chairperson, myself. I was brought on this year because we can only have a 2-year term, but I was appointed by John, so I can't do that again. And so I'm on it, and Vicki Skeel, who is not here today. I have typed up, and we will put on the meetup page what our nominating process was. If you'd like to check out all the details, we just think that's important for the growth of the group. So if new people are doing it, you don't have to rewrite the wheel every year. But essentially, because we really have room for a good number of trustees, unless we get more than, say, 11 people, we don't actually need to have elections. We just need to vet you, make sure that you've been to a couple meetings, and that you feel you have some energy to give. I was going to ask, when Sarita was talking about all the changes they made and did things, I'm like, there was a process where people got energized, and I have to tell you, whenever somebody gives a little bit, it's energizing for all, so we continue to ask for it and solicit people who would like to bring some their energies to the board, even just to discuss it. But the nominating committee has been making contact with people, and if you would like us to contact you, and we haven't, talk to me at the pop-up. And we will present a slate, though, of officers in December, and you vote on them or approve them in January, so that's how that works.
And so I think the word that our ACLU speaker said was nudge, and so there was your nudge. Yeah, if you feel like serving on the board, do it. It'll help shape the future of this organization, help us figure out how to bring more people in and what kind of events we should be hosting and all that kind of fun stuff. It's a great way to serve and help the community grow. And then, starting February, we'll launch that new board. A number of upcoming events that I wanted to talk about, and a couple of them are right here. Alan, tell us about this movie night that's happening on Friday.
So about twice a month we have movie night here at the Reason Center on Friday nights, 7 to 9. Yeah. We have one movie every month that's on some kind of documentary series or more serious type issue, and then we have one movie that's just fun. We have free popcorn every time. You just come, visit the Reason Center, watch the movie, and then go home, and that's it. So it's just a great thing to come here and hang out, meet people, and see a movie.
And so they're not allowed to say what Friday's movie is. Their license doesn't do that. But it is described as the following, and I quote, "A strange ancient star map from disconnected archaeological sites around the world leads a billionaire and a ragtag crew to launch a secret trip to a new planet to investigate." I'll let you decide what that movie might be. Now also here at the Reason Center, AOF, Atheists and Other Free Thinkers, has a couple great things going on. I believe both of these events are theirs. On the 19th, Dr. Bill Durston is Americans Against Gun Violence, and on the 26th is Professor Richard Kowalski talking about why people choose to hate. And I think, and correct me if anyone knows if I'm wrong, I think these are both AOF events.
The 19th is HAGSA.
Oh, HAGSA, I'm sorry. So HAGSA and then AOF. And they're both free to attend. Donations are accepted right here. On December 3rd, former speaker of Sunday Assembly, Keith Lowell Jensen, our local favorite atheist comedian, he is just about to launch a new album. It's going to be recorded here in Sacramento at, it escapes me now, Punchline, thank you. It's called I Used to Be a Kid. It's like $15 and a 2-drink minimum, and it's going to be a blast. I unfortunately cannot go, but I hope a lot of us can and go support him. And then on December 23rd, right here, again at the Reason Center, is their annual, or the community's annual event called Human Light. And our two co-people for Human Light are right here. Tell us what you got planned.
Our co-organizers.
Co-organizers.
I guess. So every year we have this. It's kind of an alternative to other events that happen around, the 25th of December. And so it's an opportunity for everybody to get together. Hopefully, if you're feeling left out, this is a chance for us all to feel part of our community. And we've done this for a number of years. Some years it's been bigger, some years it's been a little bit smaller. We used to have a lot of entertainment, it carried on a little bit too long. This year we're just going to keep it pretty simple. It's just going to be a potluck. Everybody brings whatever dish. We're going to try and have vegan options available. My wife is vegan, I'm a flexitarian. So there'll be those options, and then we'll have a raffle to fundraise for the event and for the Reason Center. And we'll also take donations for both the human and a pet food bank and distribute those afterwards. So,
It's always been a great event. I've enjoyed it. I'm going to be helping you guys out again. So you guys are looking for volunteers still? So if you want to volunteer, maybe show up a little early or commit to staying a little late, put away, clean up, that kind of stuff. Talk to Tom and Wendy here. You guys going to stick around for the potluck too? If not, well, then talk to them before they leave. All these events and many more are up on our Facebook page and or the meetup.com site. And I want to just remind everybody about Smoops. These are these small groups that we often try and get together through Sunday Assembly. And John, who's not here, he often does the Pizza and Possibilities monthly event. And for a while, some of these were happening. They kind of died off a little bit. If anybody here is interested in making one of these happen, whether it's monthly, quarterly, whatever, you want it up on our meetup page, that's awesome. And so if you're like, yeah, we've got family, we want to do some potlucks, or I know a great, let's all put like a 6 to 18 trivia, just take over what happens at this other bar. I think that's awesome. River cleanup, highway cleanup, second Saturdays over at the art at the museum. I think that's great too. So if any of you want to create one of these, talk to me or any of the board members during the potluck, and we'll make it happen. And so now that all that's out of the way, let's talk about whatever is on your mind. Does anyone have any open floor announcements or anything they'd like to share with everyone else? Tom, all right, come on up.
I'm requesting assistance to get myself down to Sacramento State University sometime during the week so I can interview some physics professors about what I see the universe is doing versus what everyone else thinks for 100 years. So if I could get help driving back and forth, that'd be awesome. And this is my day late and dollar short for Free Thought Day. It says think ahead, and it has a D on that. Thank you. Okay. So that I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you very much.
That wasn't one of my reminders. I think that was on your iPad over here. All right, any other announcements? Yeah, come on up, Jenna.
Well, I just like that. If anybody likes karaoke, I go to a really fun place, and it's on Friday and Saturday evening. Come see me. I go to the Ernie's Interlude. It's really fun. You don't have to sing. And something else. Oh, if there's any songwriters here, I'm interested in. I sing like Janis Joplin. I'd like to talk to you.
All right, thank you so much. Very cool. Any other announcements? All right, in that case, we're going to do a little bit of a icebreaker. We haven't done icebreakers, I think, in a few months. So we're going to do some icebreakers. And our prompt for today, which would be great, is if you could all stand up, talk to your neighbors. And our prompt for today is, what are you thankful for this year? And what's going to happen is, while we're doing the icebreakers, we're going to pass the hat around like we normally do, the hats. And of course, your donations to Sunday Assembly, they are tax deductible. They pay for the room, they pay for our supplies, insurance, our meetup events and stuff like that. So Nancy will pass the hats. I'm going to play a little bit of music, and let's find out what you're thankful for. So introduce yourself to a neighbor. We'll do this for just about a minute or two. What are you thankful for?
I saw it and then. Thank you, Mike. Hi, Mike.
Casey.
Casey.
Nice to meet you.
What do you think for this year? I have my role. Let's get right to the next slide. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I'll get going. This is Jetta. This is What is anything coming to you? So you were in a school that wasn't it's not pleasant. So the adults need to know that is a story that so share that
standing. Everyone stay standing. And so I want to thank real quick, again, stay standing. I want to thank everybody who participated today. I want to thank our two wonderful speakers. Let's give them a round of applause. And before we close out, we've got Michael Harold here on guitar and was it Clyde? Clyde on drums. Let's give both of them a round of applause. I want to thank Janet for putting our program together. I want to thank everyone, including Becky back there, for helping out, all the donors.
Hey, Becky.
And so, so let's kick this off. Let's close this out with a little bit of John Mellencamp. You ready to roll?
Yeah, I need that microphone.
Oh yeah. There you go. It helps.
Okay, this was another sort of celebratory song, a little bit of a different celebration of American rock and roll. There's a reference to Jesus in this song, which is a little weird for Sunday Assembly, but I say reason instead of Jesus, so whatever. They'll probably say Jesus.
They come from the cities and they come from the small towns. With the hard and the car and the gun, they go fast, boom, bang, yeah. All those who stay in the USA, all those who stay in the USA, all those who stay in the USA, yeah. Rockin' in the USA. With pockets in their heads and very little in their hands. But some are black and some are white. And you got to put your forward to unite. If I didn't even know that they just might. Rockin' in the USA. All those who stay in the USA. All those who stay in the USA. All those who stay in the USA. Yeah. Rockin' in the USA. Voices of nowhere, voices of the large town. I feel our heads with dreams and turn all over fire down. And then we find another full of misfire. Second book is named about the young rascals. Some of them off the reeds and don't forget getting by. Rockin' in the USA. All those who stay 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 in the USA. Yeah. Rockin' in the USA.
Wonderful job, everybody. Congratulations to yourselves for that. So if you have a, let's say, green chairs are going to get put away by the wall. And if you're in a purple chair, they stay right where they are. Let's get a couple people to help move the tables in where the green chairs were. And we'll have a follow-up. Thank you, everyone. Remember, celebrate life.
Yeah.
Green chairs by the wall.
Moving today. I really appreciate that story. It still as a parent that that step, and you're evidently raising your child to be realistic.